So the ink is hardly dry on the cabinet appointments announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa late Sunday night, and criticisms about a bloated cabinet are coming in thick and fast. Opposition parties have expressed concern that the move was made to appease Government of National Unity partners. They've criticized Ramaphosa's executive, saying it will increase the wage bill but also compromise the principles of the GNU. That bridge has already been crossed, and the question for South Africa is, will this cabinet in its current form be effective? CEO of Good Governance Africa for the Southern Africa region, Patrick Kulati, joins me now. Patrick, good morning and welcome to the program. Thanks for your time. So there have been many views expressed over the last 2 days. Broadly speaking, what's your impression of the size of this cabinet itself?
Good morning, Iman. Good morning to your viewers. It's a very, very difficult position that President Ramaphosa found himself. On the one side, there are political considerations that needed to be taken on board as part of the GNU arrangements. But also the last year or early last year or towards the end of the previous year, there were austerity measures that the government put in place to reduce public expenditure and to make sure that the country's finances are reined in. Now, with this Government of National Unity and this big cabinet, so what you are facing on the one side are austerity measures and the need by the public and the high expectations for the public to see public service delivery. So it's a very, very difficult position to be in. And I understand why he couldn't reduce the public, the cabinet because of all the political dynamics. But now they need to work with what they have. They need to make sure that people on the ground feel that there's a government of national unity that's making a difference. They have to figure out how they can do that.
Yeah. So we've seen some configurations and reconfigurations of the actual portfolios themselves, but I want to talk about the deputy ministers. We now have 43 deputy ministers. 11 portfolios have 2 deputies, among them trade and industry, water and sanitation, international relations, and so on. What actually do deputy ministers do?
Deputy ministers get given certain responsibilities within the ministry, where the minister handles cabinet issues, attend to priorities by the cabinet. But there are programs that deputy ministers get assigned by the ministry and the department. And so they support the minister in making sure that whatever mandate that ministry or that department is given, the deputy minister steps in to represent the minister when they are not available. But up until they get given responsibilities and assigned tasks, they're going to have to wait for the minister. And it's not clear to me why some departments have got 3, some have got 2. And I come back to that issue that it may be that it's more of a political consideration rather than clarity or speeding up, the need to speed up the delivery. So what now needs to happen is that there needs to be within all those ministries where a time when they sit down and really allocate the tasks that need to be done so that we also as a public understand what these ministers, these deputy ministers are there to do. It is not always clear, in terms of why you need 2 or 3 rather than 1.
I mean, it's an open secret, as you say, and as a number of analysts in the aftermath of that announcement has said, that he had to strike a balance. He had to appease people, and this was kind of like the appointment of expediency. So we get that as South Africans, and we understand, because what we want is, okay, so we're stuck with this now. These deals and these trade-offs have been made. Now we want it to work. I think what you're also signaling to us is the next responsibility of all these appointments in terms of the ministers themselves. As the public, we need to hear, if I've got 2 or 3, this is how we are going to work together. And when we're looking for accountability on these different issues, this is who we need to point the finger at, or this is, the door we need to knock on. Would that be correct?
That's correct. The problem is that sometimes as government makes these appointments, or the president makes these appointments, we're not clear about the tasks of these people. Even if you go to their website, where there are two deputy ministers, you can't really work out in terms of saying, what is it that this one is going to be focusing on? What is this one going to be focusing on? So we need that. We need public information and communication so that we can really understand how do we engage with them. Those of us in the civil society are going to be engaging with these ministries and ministers. We want to know, what do we talk to whom about within these functions. So I think that for me is the biggest problem here. We now need to move away from the political considerations to governance. How are these people going to use the public resources that are made available to them and for the benefit of people? How are they going to help in that agenda? That is what is missing in the considerations when we move away from the political considerations.
And I think South Africans really need to internalize what you've just said, is we are paying this amount of money. I think the estimation is around north of a billion rand annually now to accommodate all of these people. We may have to just look at that number a bit closely, but those are some of the initial projections we're thinking about, is that we need to demand accountability and value for our money. And I just wanted to really reinforce that point. Before I move on to the next question and we look at some of the big portfolios that are double-ended or now have three three people in charge, we use ministry and department interchangeably just for the public service. Explain the differentiation between those two terms.
Okay. The ministry is the office of the minister. That's where, you have a chief of staff, you've got, the deputy minister and other staff members, advisors and people like that. That's the office of the minister and the deputy minister. But the department is the administration part of things, which is now run by the Director General. So those are the people that are responsible for delivery on the ground. The ministry is sort of sets the strategic direction and the political direction so that it's supposed to be insulate the public part. The department is supposed to be insulated from the political considerations to be overriding. So there has to be a management of that so that these two units do their work. The ministry, engaged in parliament, is the one that's engaging with the other committees and other ministers in cabinet and so on. But the department is the one that is responsible to get things done on the ground.
All right, so they're the boots on the ground. But now, does it mean that poor DG and the DDG has three bosses?
I think it's one of the most difficult jobs to do, but I think they have a direct link to the minister. They have to work with the deputy the deputy minister. But I think, as far as I understand, even their contract is signed by the minister. I need just to check that. But my understanding is that they are direct boss. But obviously, a deputy minister is senior. These are politicians. They need to work together. So in a way, you could say that there's an indirect sort of dotted line to the deputy minister. But the primary accountability of a DG is to the minister. And I'm sure they also account to parliament and they're appointed by the president.
Yeah. And again, it's important to reinforce the point that there needs to be that clarity of understanding as to who is going to do what. And I think in the conversations going forward, we need to be a lot more, direct with the ministers and the deputy ministers about what is your job going to look like? What are you taking responsibility for in this sort of division of labor to ensure the efficacy and the effectiveness of your ministry? I want to look at some of the most important portfolios. Patrick, we look at finance, which is now under the stewardship of Enoch Godongwana, so there's continuity there. And then supported by two deputies, David Masondo and Asher Sarapin. Again, very important. So you do have that continuity, and then you have these two kind of, supporting the minister there. What are your impressions of those appointments? And again, working together symphonically.
I think the president there wanted to have continuity and certainty. It seems like the markets, the private sector, have begun to buy and find confidence in Minister Konongwana and his deputy. And I think the president wanted continuity there. He wanted certainty there. And I think that settled the markets a little bit. What is not clear is now the second deputy minister. The main issue there is that that deputy minister is coming from a different political party. So now, what is going to be the policy emphasis? I know everybody is talking about economic growth, the need for financial stewardship and all of that. How are they going to be doing that? What emphasis are they going to be put? Are they going to be aligned? Because they're coming from different political parties. My view is that this government of national unity, is going to have to spend a lot of time building relationships, just interpersonal relationships between these people, especially of different political parties, new ministers and deputy ministers coming through. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to be bogged down in personal conflicts. You're going to be bogged down in all these kind of problems that normally happens. It happen in between just people of the same political party. How much more? So my view is that for this government to work better, they need to spend a lot of time to identify key priority areas for each department and modalities of how to deliver on those priorities.
And again, another important point that you raised, because we had been setting up, we've been setting up interviews with different ministers and so on. And one of them said to me this morning, we'll wait to come on because we want to actually engage with the team first before we trigger our vision and our strategic intent to the public. And I think that was the right thing to do. I mean, we all want to know and get to know them, but it's also good to build that trust within the people that you're going to be working with before you go ahead. There's two deputies for police. So you've got Polly Boshielo and Castle Matale. That's under the leadership now of Senzo Mchunu. On a different note, what problems are likely to emerge, or is this an opportunity to have three heads finally put its feet on the neck of rampant crime in South Africa?
Iman, I can say I hope so. We can look at it at this issue as the president signaling how of priority this matter is of criminality and violence in our country. That's why he put more resources into this portfolio, apart from just the political considerations we talked about earlier on. But what people, when the president was speaking, I was looking at his speech when he was speaking at the inauguration there. He highlighted all the things that people needed in the area of safety. People need to sleep safe at night. People need to walk on the streets. So the extent to which this department is going to deliver that, it still needs to be, we still have to see that. Now, what we need, how are we going to measure this? We're going to measure by the effectiveness of prevention, of crime prevention, by the effectiveness of arrests and convictions, the investigations that take place. Because sometimes crime scenes are bungled. We need to make sure that the corruption that's gripping the police service is broken and destroyed. These are the priorities that these people need to put their heads around and tell us as the public, how are they going to do it? And give us projections of how the reduction is going to take place of crime scenes, of the various types of crimes that we're experiencing in this country.
And again, it's such a useful conversation because we take a lot of things for granted and we operate on the basis of assumption in who's going to do what. I think now, especially because of all the pressure, we have a new formation of government in the Government of National Unity, a cabinet which is bigger, so we're paying a lot more money. South Africa and South Africans need to demand more of that accountability. Let's see if they are going to be effective in their roles. And we start to see visibly in our communities, safer communities, more efficient policies that really do the work of unlocking growth in our economy. Thank you for this. I've enjoyed the conversation. That was Patrick Kulati, who is the CEO of Good Governance Africa for the Southern Africa region.